information, knowledge, secrets.
You can interrogate me with torture, nigga. I won't confess at all.
So Katt Williams is probably one of my favorite comedians, probably ever of all time. And I actually made it a hobby of mine to go in and challenge myself with different really famous or celebrity figures that I really enjoy. I've challenged myself with just going in and digging on their lives or taking the things they say, fact checking them, or just looking a little deeper into everything about that person to make sure that my feelings about them line up with who they are as a person. It's really good to be skeptical of everybody that's in a prominent position, whether it's a celebrity or a government position, anywhere of power. I just wanted to know in this video, the question for me was, is Katt a Freemason, alchemist? Does he believe in Jesus? I really just wanted to know more about Katt, but specifically, is he in the Illuminati, right? I found some amazing, mind-blowing stuff. This is going to be a great watch for you. Stay tuned till the end. And the biggest thing to keep in mind is everything is connected. And I mean everything.
If you were to read like thousands of books about people that knew a bunch of shit, like you start finding out that it's not really about knowing anything, it's about where to go to get the information. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like when we look at all the ruins all around the world, like we're not seeing ruins of colleges and universities. We're seeing temples and synagogues and churches, and that's where that information was coming from for that period of time. When we went to these temples, they weren't in there singing and reading from a book. They were in there being taught things that they were able to go put into practice.
So based off what I've seen through my research, when Katt was really young, he read a lot of books because he was going through a really hard time. I don't know if it was with his dad, his mom, or his living situation, but he basically read books nonstop for probably 2 or 3 years. And during that time, he learned so much that he matured so fast that basically he came to the point all we would in our minds when we were older, but at a really young age, which created this insane thirst for knowledge that would later lead to the occult, which is just simply hidden.
And in the middle of you doing it, you realize you only have a certain amount of time. And you're like, God damn it, I'm just starting to figure this game out.
I was probably like 5 years old when I had that moment. So I lucked out because it happened to me so early. If you follow information about humankind, you find out that in all parts of history, people were coming to this region for their information and their knowledge and their things that were forbidden, and these were not these were the highest of human civilization here.
Not even comparable to anyone else.
No.
Nor since. Nor since.
Now or
Nor since.
Right. If you follow that information pathway, it leads you to this character called Thoth. And the emerald tablets, literally mind-changing and mind-blowing, because you understand when this was written, the terminology being used is far too accurate for now.
Hidden knowledge, occult knowledge, hidden. And obviously these people who reach these points of information and knowledge in their lives are prime candidates to join the Illuminati, or more simply put, to become famous and be in the spotlight, to give messages or to be figureheads of specific propaganda or other reasons that this industry would want you to be a part of it. Katt gets in and he explains that there are 2 different types of people. One person wants to help everybody, and he says they eventually get to the point where they're never satisfied because they can never help enough people. And he said there's another type of person that sees people as a commodity and makes money off those people.
That's the difference between those of us that want to know the world's mysteries and conspiracy theorists. Like, there's nothing to a conspiracy theorist because you're not producing what you're using. But these world mysteries, like, that's harder to do.
He never tells you where he's at, but I'm going to prove to you he's simply one of the people who wants to make money off people, and that's just because he wants to feel fulfilled. He's in it for himself, and that doesn't make him a terrible person. He's just not on our team, and he's not helping us. He's just out here getting paid to push an agenda to make the line in the sand thicker, so that way when the Civil War pops off, it's more people on each side, more people fighting, more chaos.
You know what it is. Williams. Katt Williams, a.k.a. Money Mike, a.k.a. Pimpin', a.k.a. Dipset Bird Gang. Oh. Act like you heard about it, nigga. Oh, for real? Oh, for real? Yeah, believe that. No, really, nigga. No, really, nigga. Oh, no, really, on the come up. No, really, nigga. Oh, no, really, nigga. No, really, nigga. On the come up, nigga. Come up, nigga.
Hey, that's dirty funny, man.
On the come up. All day. That's my answer to niggas. Nigga, what you doing? Nigga, I'm on the come up. What you doing tomorrow, nigga? On the come up. Yes, sir. Act like you heard about it.
So on the surface, Katt obviously seems like a pretty chill celebrity. He doesn't have a lot of Illuminati stuff going on that you can see, but digging, I found a lot of symbology I'll get into. He really doesn't think it makes sense to help people, which I understand, but at the same time, in contrast, I'm the complete opposite. I believe in helping people no matter what until I die. And just to get in to prove to you this is where he's at, a couple things to keep in mind. When he went on Joe Rogan, he came out and said that he bought this new Rolls Royce. It's the Spectre.
Hey, Katt!
And it was $450,000 out of nowhere. He also bought this insane chain, bracelet, and ring. We'll get into the symbology there. But all of this money out of nowhere, and then he just comes out and starts speaking about this stuff on the podcast. To me, it just shouts that he got a payment to come out and speak publicly to try to stir stuff up. And why wouldn't he? He's just coming out here speaking about the truth, right? He's not lying to people. He's just kind of stirring the pot and getting people, hey, either wake up or don't. That's basically what he's doing. And that's because they're about to spark off a war between both sides. Now, he mentions things in the Joe Rogan podcast like saying the word GOAT is really Baphomet and that people are normalizing it.
Somehow, calling people the GOAT would be normalized in the ritual of Baphomet, the transgender, to show allegiance to him.
But at the same time, he literally has a clothing brand that says GOAT. He's actually worn a hat that says GOAT, okay? So what he does is, and I'm going to get into this, he says the truth, but then he does the opposite, basically hypocritical. And that's literally what folk means, which is what his chain means, which is what I'm going to get into. His clothing brand also has owls, right? And owls is a symbol just like OVO Drake. It's a symbol for Moloch. That's the owl at the Bohemian Grove that they worship.
Bohemian Grove rabbit holes.
I went there once.
Bones.
I got kicked out.
Did you? Hey, you went to the Grove?
Yeah.
Oh shit! Why'd you get kicked out?
Weird. Fucking weird. I punched a kid in the head.
You punched a kid in the head? In Bohemian Grove?
Yeah, it turns out this fucking kid was an infiltrator. So then after that, I was kind of this hero. Like a year or two later, he'd come back. I was like, I'm not coming to your little fucking weird party out in the fucking woods. I was like, I went once. It ain't that cool. We're sitting on this fire. You have these little, they're kind of like tree houses or campsites, but they're really nice. Everyone has a private chef. Got like, you know.
Really?
Yeah, you just share a room. Me and Jimmy John shared a room. That was fun. I was at the owl statue. This is fucking hilarious. So I'm there on day one, right? And we're drinking beers. Like, it's pretty laid back. There's some really cool talks. Remember this dude talking about shooting asteroids out that might hit the Earth in so many years, shit like that. I'm like, fuck, this is cool. But the first day, it was the first evening, and you gather around whatever, the owl by this lake, if I remember correctly, which could be a little hazy. It was a long time ago. And like, I've heard about this place. I'm like, this is some real secret ass shit, man. I can't believe I'm fucking here, right? And it's just a trove of celebrities. Fucking everywhere you turn, it's just fucking A.
Obviously, it's deeper than that, but that's one example. Katt comes out, he speaks about the truth, and then he actually lives this life. And if you don't look into it, you're not going to understand that. Just because he's exposing it doesn't mean he's not a part of it. And that's okay. I still like his comedy, and we're going to get into more details right now. So when Katt and Joe get into the propaganda, Katt admits that he even knows how deep the rituals go, right?
Things that make you think. There's so much information that people are just constantly consuming. This bullshit information like TikTok and nonsense that just passes you by. Get your attention.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what all of this is about.
Mm-hmm.
From the Roman Colosseums
Yep.
to, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the Roman
King
Colosseum's
Arthur's court time, like...
That's the first viral videos, right? Like that's,
right. All of these things are connected in these higher upper echelon conversations. I'm saying you see the same conversation with Tesla or Da Vinci, or information is what is limited.
All right, so look, here's the deal. They have been desensitizing us since we were born. And I'll give you some examples. Let's start with the big one. Let's start with words we hear all the time and never even think about. Let's start with the word entertainment. To entertain. What does that mean? To bind or hold. To bind or hold what? An audience's attention. Okay, now let's take the word Hollywood. Where does that come from? Well, Hollywood comes from the holly tree. And the ancient Druids, back in the day, used to take the holly tree, make wands to weave spells, cast spells, or channel spells. And when they needed help, they would consult the magi's or the mediums of the day to help channel their spells to the population. We'll cut to today. What do we have in our houses? We have these black boxes. What are they called? TVs. But if you stop and you say the word television, and when you turn on that television, what do you get? What's the first thing that pops up? A list of channels. And when you turn on those channels, what's on those channels? Programming. They are programming you. They've been programming your whole life. You don't even know it. They do it with your music. They do it with your TV. They do it with your movies. They do it with your games. They have been programming us and programming you since you were little, and you don't even know it because you don't even question it.
Understand, this is not being consistently done. This is being done.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so there's no such thing as you getting too much of it. You're not getting enough to do anything except relax.
Right.
And relax is what you should be doing as we discuss what we're discussing.
Yeah, it'll humble you a little. Calm you down a little.
It'll take the edge off.
Yeah.
Hollywood is not really there to entertain you. Like, that's great that happens. But propaganda is something that is important to all civilizations.
Well, propaganda in Hollywood movies is built into the ingredients list. If you want to be able to make movies about certain subjects, you have to be willing to work with some people. And, you know, it'd be nice if you made it so that this is what we're trying to accomplish, and this is showing the negative side of this other society, and this is this is our hero. Is our hero who's going to go do America's bidding and go over there and like you become a bit of a propaganda arm for the government, and in turn they don't fuck with you.
In a movie like Zoolander, when they're showing you that they're controlling Derek Zoolander's mind through mind control, you realize that they're trying to desensitize you and to make you think that what you're watching is fiction because it's in a comedy.
Their purpose is to capture the minds of the people and feed them false history. The CIA is funneling information into Hollywood. Hollywood is putting out in the movies, and the population believes it.
That's what makes information so powerful is, you don't care how people feel about the ritual. It's about does following the ritual work.
Those movies are successful, and so they continue this relationship.
So Katt is basically one of the best distractions out there. I actually love his distractions. They're hilarious. So now we're really going to get into the sauce that really proves that he's a Freemason, an alchemist, a philosopher. He's a really smart dude, believe it or not, and he's so smart he can actually run circles around the viewers and the interviewer in any interview, and you would have no idea. If you watch the interview between him and Joe Rogan, you'll see him pause a lot and only give about 10% of truths. And in this video, I take those clips and I give you 100% the truth, which gives you 100% the image of who he is and what he believes.
Shoes and bones in this cave. This is Melhauer Cave, and it is the creepiest cave I've ever seen. It was owned by the Freemasons. As you can see their logo on top of the cave, it was supposedly used for annual meetings and get-togethers for members from all around the world. It was being used since 1938. Before the Freemasons took control of the cave, the local Native Americans would say that specific cave was a passageway to the underworld. Coincidence? I think not. And supposedly is where they held demonic rituals. Knowledge of the cave started spreading in 2019. That's when they decided to put the gate up, saying that they were afraid for people's safety because they did have an underwater canal under the cave and didn't want anybody to get hurt. Or maybe they just didn't want y'all to find anything. Because a blogger on YouTube who was exploring the cave found a pile of bones and children's shoes.
Pair one. I think it's an old shoe. Not gonna touch them. They're cool. See the bones.
Now, an excuse from one of the members that was given was, it was most likely either animals that brought the shoes and bones in, like small critters, or the underground canal flooded and brought them in. They also blamed the vandals who would break into the cave for the shoes and bones being there. But people believe something more sinister is going on. I mean, why wouldn't they? Over 500,000 kids go missing every year in the United States.
Suspects in California are accused of running a fake police department and put under arrest. One of the suspects even works for California Attorney General Kamala Harris. I'm 48 Hours Crimesiders, Michelle Sagona. The ruse began in January when the San Diego Sheriff's Office says various police chiefs in Southern California began to receive letters from the Masonic Fraternal Police Department. The letter said specifically that David Henry was now the chief and he was requesting a meeting with each agency. According to a press release, Captain Roosevelt Johnson of the Santa Clarita Valley Sheriff's Office actually accepted a meeting with Henry, Tonette Hayes, and Brandon Keel. They showed up dressed in uniforms and said they were setting up shop in the area. All three were arrested and now charged with impersonating a peace officer. The group claims to have jurisdiction in 33 states and in Mexico. They allegedly believe they're descendants of the Knights Templar and that their group was founded 3,000 years ago. But medieval scholars say their claims are incorrect and that the Knights Templar was founded during the 12th century Crusades in Jerusalem. Their mission was to protect pilgrims visiting the Holy City, and they answered to the Pope. Some historians speculate that they were tasked with finding precious religious relics during the wars. The legend of the Knights has been featured in popular Hollywood films like The Da Vinci Code,
The Knights Templar.
But the Templars were created to protect the Holy Land.
That was a color.
and National Treasure. As for the suspects, police say after serving a search warrant, they uncovered an array of badges, weapons, uniforms, and even police-type cars and equipment at 2 different residences. A next-door neighbor who referred to David Henry and Tonette Hayes as a couple spoke out to KCBS.
I always see them with their uniform, so I thought they were part of any chief department. I didn't know it was something fake.
On the website, the group describes how they are different from police departments. The site says, quote, "We are born into this organization. Our bloodlines go deeper than an application. This is more than a job. It's an obligation." Investigators have not determined a purpose or a motive for the organization. Authorities also believe others may be involved, and they're accepting your tips to lead them to other suspects.
What's the deal with the Freemasons? When did this start?
This goes all the way back to deep, deep antiquity. We're talking about 30,000 plus years ago. There were these brick masons in ancient Kemet called the Shattu. There was a pyramid war. There were 2 pyramid wars. The second pyramid war in the tablets talks about the fact that the Shattu helped Amun-Ra escape through a hidden passage in one of the pyramids. And before he left, he decreed that he would leave the kingdom to his Ra-Kam. Kam translates into shield, Ra shield. Over time, it became Rothschilds that are now running the planet.
Be a Shriner, you got to be a Mason. Before you be a Knights Templar, you got to be a Mason. And the more you go up in that pyramid, and the highest you could go is a Rothschild. Right. They're the highest of the highest. Really? Yeah, the children of Satan. Moloch is the actual owl that they worship out in California, all these big shots. And that's where they make the presidents, too. Really? They make presidents there. Oh, yeah, you have to be a Freemason to be there. All the presidents were Freemasons. Okay. A small portion weren't, but they were Jesuits. This is the same thing. Okay. Yeah, even the Pope. Yeah, everything is controlled by the white and black Pope. Yeah. So black and white, which is white and black tiles, is where we have our temple. That's where you get that. Yeah, the yin yang, you know, the good versus evil. You got to have one of the balance. They know which president they're going to make. They make them. All this political stuff, right, that's just BS. Right. The all-seeing eye is the Lucifer. Right. Underneath them is the Rothschilds. Underneath them is the Council of 13. Underneath them, you got the Council of 33.
2 aspects of mystic power are more fascinating, or buried more deeply in esoteric teachings and symbols. Thus, it was accessible only to selected candidates who had gone through the fires of initiation and vows of secrecy.
Underneath them, you got the Council of Foreign Relations. And underneath them, you got, you know, like 6 big companies. They own all the real estate and they own all, like, media. The Masons are the foot soldiers of the Illuminati. You understand the pyramid, right? Yes, yes. It's shaped like a triangle, right? So we're at the very bottom. Rothschilds, they run all that from their house. They don't leave that house.
Why is that? I mean,
because that's where the devil dwells. The devil could only be in one.
Well, what's wrong with being a Freemason, right? Well, a lot of people see that a lot of elites at the top are all Freemasons, and it ties into Skull and Bones, it ties into the Jewish Kabbalah, it ties into Satanism, it ties into a lot of things. And basically, we see that a lot of low-level Freemasons don't see what's going on until they're in it so long, have built their brotherhood up so much that when they get told the truth, they will still stay in there, right? So the truth at the end, when they realize, is that they're really worshiping Satan 100%. There's pentagrams. They do say they have the Freemason, the Masonic Bible, but I promise you they do not believe in Jesus as the focal point.
This man grills a 32nd degree Freemason, asking him who his supreme authority is.
There's no way you believe in fraternity over truth.
That's why I joined, to get the truth. Because everyone...
Do you think you found it? That's a no.
No.
That's a no. That's a no.
You went through 32 degrees, you haven't found anything? 30th, 31st, 32nd, 33rd. You guys adhere to a supreme authority named Lucifer on page 321 of Morals and Dogma.
I'm pure and virtuous and wholesome and innocent. How can you say anything bad about me?
Sir, you need to be born again.
I am born again.
Now, did you just say that you are Lucifer?
I am Lucifer.
Okay, define Lucifer for me.
Pure, virtuous, wholesome, innocent individual that's out to help people.
Lucifer is?
Yeah.
Say that again. Lucifer is a pure, holy...
Virtuous.
Virtuous. Now, is he the Lucifer that God created?
That's the same one.
Oh, man, this is great. I'm going to put this on the internet.
Every Mason answers this like in a bland way. What's the significance of the apron?
Well, it represents the purity.
What is it covering? It's covering the life force energy, the penis.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say that? The significance is you're hiding the generative principle. The Egyptians did wear the apron still, even without the G, because they understood everything is built by that the will of the universe, the sexual essence.
Yes.
So would you say it's a sex cult?
What?
It is a sex cult. All your secret powers are behind that apron. What's behind the apron is the penis. When the flap goes up, the penis is getting erect.
I was a young child. I was being raped by my father. My father is a Freemason. As me, as a kid, I was about 11, 12 years old. At the time when these images were taken, I was going to school every day. I had, on the surface, a normal life. But I was taken to a lot of rituals in the Grand Lodge, or sometimes more locally in the local area where I live.
What was the main way in which the Freemasons abused children, and you specifically?
The main way was rape, but the worst ways were using your hand to kill another being. I saw a little boy being murdered.
Yeah, Dad. Check it out. So this is more than a little disconcerting. It's just a pile of shoes and some bones in there.
There's like bones. There's bones.
A pile of shoes and bones.
There's like ribs and stuff.
That's a bone right there. Actually, there's quite a few bones.
Ben Franklin, they found tons of bodies in his...
Ben Franklin was a serial killer?
No, he was like doing some weird shit.
Was Ben Franklin's basement filled with skeletons? Repairs on Franklin's old London house turned up 1,200 pieces of bone from at least 15 people. For nearly 2 decades. By the way, this is from the Smithsonian.
Damntripoli.com.
Yeah. For nearly 2 decades leading up to the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Franklin lived in London in a house on 36 Craven Street. In 1776, Franklin left his English home to come back to America. More than 200 years later, 15 bodies were found in the basement, buried in a secret windowless room beneath the garden. From a 1 meter wide, 1 meter deep pit, over 1,200 pieces of bone were retrieved. Remnants of more than a dozen bodies, 6 were children. Forensic investigations showed that the bones dated to Franklin's day. Holy shit.
And this evening, getting under the skin of the Ivy League, those 8 old, definitely distinguished colleges that are known for their ivy-covered buildings and their sometimes superior attitudes to other colleges and universities, which often gets under the skin of people who went elsewhere. Yale University is 300 years old this year, and were you to visit its campus, you would see that it still has exotic clubhouses, which look like tombs where Yale's legendary secret societies meet. Their prestige and importance have largely evaporated, but the rituals are still a secret. And so when we heard that some enterprising characters had managed to spy on the famous Skull and Bones Society, we couldn't resist. Here's ABC's Dan Harris.
The videotape provides a grainy glimpse into what appear to be the initiation rituals of a secret society that's been around since 1832, whose members have gone on to be leaders of Wall Street and the White House, the Senate and the Supreme Court.
They're sort of trying to scare the initiates, make them, disorient them, frighten them.
New York Observer investigative reporter Ron Rosenbaum accompanied a team of Yale students who shot these pictures 9 days ago. Rosenbaum's curiosity about Skull and Bones was permanently piqued when, as a classmate of George W. Bush, he lived right next to the Tomb, the group's heavily fortified home. From their perch, Rosenbaum and his cohorts taped the Tomb's courtyard. What they captured, they say, was initiates, known as neophytes, being forced to kiss a skull, then members performing a mock killing. It may look like your average fraternity nonsense, but Rosenbaum says it's not.
Even though it may seem silly to us, it seems to mean something to them, and you can't argue with the success of Skull and Bones.
True. Famous alums include senators John Kerry and John Chafee, to name two, cabinet secretaries such as Averell Harriman, and 3 presidents, William Taft, George Bush, and George W. Bush, who's been reluctant to talk about Skull and Bones.
Does it still exist? The thing is so secret that I'm not even sure it still exists.
Edward VII, Edward VIII, and George VI were all Freemasons, as were 18 dukes and princes, including the Duke of Edinburgh.
This year, His Royal Highness Prince Edward, the Duke of Kent, celebrates his 50th year as Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England.
His Royal Highness was proposed into Freemasonry by the then Grand Master, the Earl of Scarborough.
He was initiated into Royal Alpha Lodge number 16, an advocate for the craft all over the world, continuing 3 centuries of distinguished royal tradition at the very heart of English Freemasonry.
Order, brethren, to receive the most worshipful, the Grand Master.
As permanent master of these 3 lodges, I now call on my deputy masters.
I was a young child. I was being raped by my father, but it got a lot worse as I got older. My father is a Freemason. It was me, as a kid, I was about 11, 12 years old. At the time when these images were taken, I was going to school every day. I had, on the surface, a normal life. I saw a little boy being murdered by the Freemasonic group. And in this particular ritual, which is in the Grand Lodge, there were many little boys. I saw how there was rape in different rooms of the Freemasonic building, where the little boys and me were taken into rooms and raped by these men. And this boy, he was lying on the altar, and then they made each little boy in turn come up and stab him with a knife in the heart to kill him.
Why do you think they did that?
To have power over you so that you won't speak out. I hope this video can help people identify children that are being abused in order to help those children find support and help. It's especially important to see the ways in which children play. By playing, they often show what's happening to them, actually. Children who've faced extreme violence, they are masters at hiding what's been done to them because their life depends on it.
It's just like the head off, but still hanging on.
Okay.
Yes, and then there's a big white bowl on the floor, and then the blood drips in, and then we pour it in a big silver goblet.
When the police show up, young Jewish men fight the police, and a dozen are arrested. And now everyone is saying, what the is going on with secret Jewish tunnels in New York City?
Out of all the theories in the world, one of the biggest ones is that evil people, human traffickers, love to dig holes. They love to burrow. They love to make tunnels. Underground tunnels, tunnels, tunnels. We've heard so much about it. The elites do it to have underground bunkers, etc. There's underground places you can travel, massive complexes. And this story that happened recently is about a small complex. An example, Ted Gunderson, back in the day, he's now dead, he was the head of the FBI. He found underground tunnels in a preschool where Satanists were abusing children. Now this recent thing with New York is kind of just bringing it all to light.
We don't do that in America.
They found in a synagogue, again, just because they were Jewish doesn't mean we can't talk about it. And just because they were Jewish doesn't mean all Jewish people are bad. Multiple different types of Jews. In the United States, there are 4 main kinds of Jews. This doesn't mean that all Jewish people do this to kids. There have been lawsuits and other claims in the past that they have been doing bad things to kids. They've even admitted certain things. Back in 2013, Vice did an article with a rabbi who said that literally there's a child sex rape assembly line. And then this has been going on that long and longer. So they literally found soiled mattresses, kid chairs, high chairs, and other strange things underneath this synagogue in which they were burrowing somewhere. So could this possibly be the tip of the iceberg? Who knows?
Just told you this synagogue here for a long time. Let's have a look why. So this show was built in the late 1800s at a time when the Jewish people experienced pogroms. So what did the Jews who built this synagogue, what did they do? They made a tunnel. And this tunnel exists until this day. Have a look. They lift up the stone. And look at this. Inside, you're able to...
You said that both George W. Bush and his father had anal sex with 100 men. How do you know that?
Because they are part of the well-known fraternal group out of Yale University known as Skull and Bones. And it's public knowledge that the Skull and Bones organization, in order to be initiated, first of all, you had to lie in a casket and let men urinate on you. And then a part of the process, you had to stand in a circular, if you will, masturbation squad to be a part of Skull and Bones. And then you also had to be penetrated by the elder persons in Skull and Bones. Everybody knows this as public knowledge. And George Bush Sr. and George Bush Jr. are bona fide members of Skull and Bones. That means they have been penetrated by at least 100 men in their anus area.
They're also called pedophiles because a lot of Freemasons have been caught in acts of pedophilia. And you see different videos of them with children with veils on their head. Now, they claim that these veils are to signify a level of initiate because they have a veil over their head and they're blind to information. But I feel like it's more of a signification of marriage based on how they treat these children. And if it is a veil, it's more of a symbol that they're literally putting a veil over their head, closing their eyes to the truth. And if you need more, they even make the children initiates eat fruit, just like Adam ate the fruit, to symbolize them rebelling against God. And again, no one thinks about this aspect until it's too late. So when you're a Freemason, you basically become illuminated, therefore Illuminati, once you reach a high enough level. So the question we have is Katt part of the Illuminati? Is he a Freemason? Does he practice alchemy? Most alchemists, if not all, were all Freemasons, right? Alchemist, Freemason, Illuminati. They all go hand in hand.
While these things may seem strange, as we look into the past, we find this sort of thing has been going on for years. The Catholic Church is well known for their systemic abuse of children worldwide, and baby farms were thriving just 100 years ago.
So during the Joe Rogan Katt interview recently, Katt told Joe that he was too dark and said that Katt was illuminated. And again, the way he said this, you could think that he was just speaking in general and not about himself or to Joe, but I know the way they work and they double speak, and he absolutely meant this.
That's why I can speak with impunity about the Illuminati, because I know who you would have to be in order for what I'm saying to bother you, number one. Right. Number two, I know your big secret. I know that you're not the Illuminati, I am. So, you can't be illuminated. You're too dark. But the difficulty is getting people to believe something that they don't want to believe. And in each of these cases, this is where the money is. If you're just a capitalist, it is find something establish a value for it and make sure that that includes your profit and make sure people really want it.
Right.
It's very fundamental.
Interesting facts. Mount Hermon, the highest United Nations base in the world, sits on the peak of Mount Hermon, which is where the fallen angels landed according to the Book of Enoch. This is where the UN got their color blue from, as fallen angels were also Hindu gods which were blue. In year 1666 of all years, Louis XIV of France declared the meridian points, where 33.33 degrees east by 33.33 degrees north of the equator sits Mount Hermon. Keep in mind, a third of the angels fell from heaven, or 33.33. Also, 33 is an important number in Freemasonry. It's also interesting that Hermon means forbidden place in the Encyclopedia of Britannica.
So all throughout this interview, Katt basically hints to as above, so below, which is one of the ancient tenets of Freemasonry and the occult knowledge. He also doesn't believe in Jesus in the Bible in the traditional sense, or even as a focal point. So Katt says that Jesus actually went and learned occult information and knowledge in Egypt. So I obviously had to do some digging. So according to a specific text discovered in 1773, early high-level Christians wrote this text to preserve the teachings that were not in the mainstream of the Bible. It's called the Pistis Sophia, which is translated to faith wisdom or faith knowledge in Greek. This text gets into the origins of the universe, the origins of the divine realms and the orcons, and the nature of the soul and the path to enlightenment. This is typical alchemist, Freemasonry, occult information, not necessarily bad, all depends on what you do with it.
Even if you're just following Jesus, okay, so you believe that he was perfect and that this was how he grew up and got it. When it comes to him going to get information, he went to this specific place that we're talking about to get information and to get taught. And that's not a hidden fact. Like, it's been that way.
When Jesus disappears out of the modern day Bible at the age of 12, where does he go? He ends up in Egypt. And so but he was there to learn the Egyptian mysteries, the ancient mysteries. From who? From Thoth the Atlantean. Then from there he left and went to Tibet to learn Qigong and Reiki. And that was confirmed by the Dalai Lama. And then also he left from there and he went to India to learn the mystic arts, teaching reincarnation all the way back. God of the Bible says, I call my son out of Egypt, and then he appears riding in on the back of a donkey as a grown man. This is literally mimicking what he learned from Thoth the Atlantean's teachings. Thoth, T-H-O-T-H, and he's known as a wisdom keeper.
The long beak nose.
That's him.
So religion started with Thoth?
Yeah, so they took his teachings, his spiritual teaching, to the first baptism that was taught is in the Emerald Tablets. He talks about being baptized via elevated consciousness. It had nothing to do with splashing water and dumping your head in the pool and all this other kind of stuff. That was also another twist of the information. So I wrote this book called Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. In that book, I put the New Testament where Jesus is speaking and the Atlanteans' words from the Emerald Tablets side by side. And you see that Jesus is literally mimicking what he learned from the ancient mystery schools, which he learned directly from the Egyptian mysteries from Thoth the Atlantean's teachings. So he's not saying anything new in the New Testament. All those words that were spoken by him were information that he was taught.
The one they called Jesus was a Mason. An issue people are having with that secret is that they don't see in the Bible that it explicitly states that Jesus was a Mason. That's because that order wasn't referred to as Masonry in that book at that time. The Masons are referred to as the Essenes, who were led by a being called the teacher or the messenger of righteousness, and that translates from Hebrew as Malaika Sadiq, which becomes Melchizedek. In the biblical scriptures, you will find that Jesus was raised up in that same order. That's Hebrews 7:17. For he testifieth, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. And this being who is called Jesus also took an oath to be a part of that order. Hebrews 7:20. And insomuch as not without an oath, he was made priest. There were sacred brotherhoods active in that time, both BC and AD. And stories like like the story of Lazarus were alluding to those brotherhoods. Jesus initiated Lazarus into the order. In other words, Lazarus was pulled out of death by Jesus. This was a Masonic ritual. This was not a literal story. People are constantly being raised from the dead and initiated into the order of the truth, the light and the way, the head, the heart and the hara, the faith, the hope, and the charity. 1, 2, 3. As in the 3 levels from the lower room to the upper room. Tear down my body, and in 3 days I will rise it again. This is referring to the 3 degrees of Masonry. John 3:3. You must be born again. Why do you think it was placed in John 3:3? Jesus was of the mystic orders and the mystery schools and was raised from the dead.
You can't be reading all of these stories and not see how everything lines up.
Watch these 22 stars go and hover over the waters and then congregate over the Para Mount. Para means what? Means breath. Breath means what? Well, breath means spirit, and it hovered over the waters in Genesis. So we have, count them, 22 stars, Para Mount, Paranormal Mountain. What could be the Paranormal Mountain? Well, I'll tell you what, it's Mount Hermon. What's crazy is in the book of Enoch, 200 angels fell on Mount Hermon and congregated, and there was 22 leaders that were named. Enoch chapter 6, and you can pause and read, but 200 angels, 22 of those were named, and these are all the angels that fell down and congregated at Mount Hermon to talk about how they were going to basically take over the world with unrighteousness. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging. I'll give you the opportunity to pause and read all of this, because in Enoch chapter 6 through 10, there's some interesting things that I personally feel like speak to what's going on right now. And when it comes to stars, Revelation 9 talks about a star fell from heaven and he was given the key to the bottomless pit. Revelation 9:11 talks about Apollyon. Mount Hermon means the mountain of the chief. What chief? Could it be that chief star that looked like lightning falling from heaven? Hey, Yeshua saw it. It's so funny that stars, falling stars, are referred to as angels and angels referred to as stars. And you got this Paramount with 22 of these named stars and the name Hermon meaning devoted to destruction. And in German, it means soldier. So this is the mountain of the chief where 22 soldiers met to talk about destruction. And it's so weird that celebrities are called stars. And there's the Hollywood Walk of Fame with all of these stars that are named. I'm wondering if these fallen angels have inhabited bodies and taken over to bring more destruction to the earth, because it seems that Hollywood and the music industry, they all promote unrighteousness and ungodliness, and it's like they're trying to spread it across the world.
So Katt also gets into the Book of Enoch and the Emerald Tablets. He thinks the Anunnaki were black, the original people. The Book of Enoch is basically the same as the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's the same in Hindu mythology, pagan Roman mythology. It's basically the foundation. Apparently the Watchers, who also were known as the Gorgori or Shiny Ones, were known as God's children or the fallen angels, also giants.
The ancient law of the high heaven strictly forbids us from interfering with the mortal world. Yet you have done so brazenly. All I am guilty of, Imperious, is bringing justice, while you hide, cowering behind your throne. Silence!
These Watchers told an Egyptian sage Hermes Trismegistus to write this book. He was also known as Enoch. And apparently, Anunnaki, the fallen ones, the fallen angels, they actually need to drink human blood to survive. Azazel, one of the worst Anunnaki, or the worst fallen ones, one of the worst Watchers, Azazel took God's classified information and gave it to the humans. That includes the black arts, weapons, even makeup, and astrology. It also led to fornication with humans and a whole godless era. It is a good book to get into.
Emerald Tablet, also known as the Smaragdine Tablet or the Tabula Smaragdina. Boy, I fucked that up. It's a
Hermes
compact and
Trismegistus.
A cryptic Hermetic text. It was highly regarded by Islamic and European alchemists as the foundation of their art. Though attributed to the legendary Hellenistic figure Hermes Trismegistus. How do you say it, bro?
Trismegistus.
Trismegistus. Yeah. The text of the Emerald Tablet first appears in a number of early medieval Arabic sources, the oldest of which dates to the late 8th or early 9th century. It was translated into Latin several times in the 12th and 13th centuries. Numerous interpretations and commentaries followed. So what does it say, though? The Egyptian god Thoth. Okay, it says, beginning in the 2nd century BC onwards, Greek texts attributed to Hermes, a syncretic combination of Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, appeared in Greco-Roman Egypt. Those texts known as the Hermetica are heterogeneous collection of works that in the modern day era are commonly subdivided into two groups: the technical Hermetica, comprising of astrological, medico-botanical, alchemical, and magical writings, and the religio-philosophical Hermetica, comprising of mystical philosophical writings. Holy shit.
Is this weed talk, Joseph?
No, this is so legit.
So legit, my man.
So this dude was probably an alien.
Dude, first of all, there are no probablys.
Yeah.
That's the benefit once you hear it or read it, is the fact that it's given in first person, and that's not possible. The things that are being said are impossible. Enough time has passed, though, that it's not like that. But
I'm going to read that.
He literally says, hey, there's a spaceship on Earth, and this is where it is.
So Katt really believes the original people were black, and I agree with him. There is a lot of things supporting what he says, and it lines up with what the Moors believe, which is that America was originally Morocco, and the original people were quote-unquote copper-colored. And there's a Supreme Court case saying that the Moors are the oldest indigenous culture on Earth, and that was in 1995. The Greatest Story Ever Told, a book written by Lana Cantrell, said that we all originally had green skin and were copper-based. Now again, this could be black people, or it could be lizard people, or just green humans.
Right. First black president. Well, Barack, get off the chair. Who's our first black president? Who's our first George Washington? Abraham Lincoln. Oh, Abraham Lincoln was a Melungian. Wow. He was part black, part white, and part Cherokee Indian. Wow. You didn't know that, did you?
So, boom. I think this is the real picture of him. I'm not going around saying that the other picture was him.
Well, it's true. A piece of American history that centers around Annapolis. Here's 11 News reporter Kate Amara.
A collection of signed documents newly acquired by Sam Brown and his family. One document for each of the 14 presidents of Congress before George Washington.
I think it's important. I think it's phenomenal. I think that when you sit and talk about it, people don't realize that there were 14 presidents in a 15-year period.
I found out there were 8 presidents before George Washington. I wanted to smack somebody. You know, I wanted to know why I was taught otherwise. Just tell me the whole story. I'll fill in the blanks.
I think I also recall him saying that Barack Obama wasn't the first black president. So I started looking this stuff up and found out there were 14 presidents before George Washington and 7 black presidents before Barack Obama.
The first 7 presidents of this country were black men. Surprise, surprise, surprise. And here are their names.
I was really frustrated as a black person that we weren't included more in the Bible, right? I felt very good when I found that some of the books of the Bible that were banned because they had black guys in them.
Really? What books of the Bible? This is the New Testament? Is this when they were
You've heard the book
Constantine?
You've heard about the book of Enoch.
Yes.
Right? If you know that book, it says that Noah was an albino.
You abandon your birthrights and constitutional protection. Americans are not idiots. Book reference, America. From Amerigo Vespucci, a Florentine who pretended to have first discovered the Western continent. What? Hold up. Run that back. Amerigo Vespucci pretended to have first discovered the Western continent? Did we learn about that in school? No, sir. Uh-oh. Book reference. At the time of the founding of this country, America was called Al-Mordikan because it was part of the Moroccan Empire, known as America. It was transliterated into America by the colonists, and eventually a story was made up that America was named after Amerigo Vespucci. Wow, this is getting good. We now realize that there was a significant motive to hide the history of what had transpired. Now watch this, book reference. American, a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals, or copper-colored races, found here by the Europeans. Pause. So the 1828 definition of an American originally applied to the Aboriginals, or various copper-complexioned peoples, found here by the Europeans, which means we was already here. Now hold that thought. Book reference. It is also important to note that the words Muslim, Saracen, Turk, Moor, Muslim, Phoenician, Olmec, Indian, Black, Ottoman, Arab, and others were used to identify Moors. Although words such as Indian and Black are derogatory. Somebody might say, I'm an American Indian, or I'm a Native American. So how is that derogatory? The name of a people must connect them instantaneously to land, history, and culture. Dr. John Henry Clark. Facts. So when you claim to be an Indian, you're in violation of law. Let me show you. United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, recognizing the urgent need to respect and promote the inherent rights of indigenous peoples, is derived from their political, especially their rights to their lands, territories, and resources. What? Lands, territories, and resources. So when you say you Indian, Black, African American, or a person of color, you abandon your birthrights and constitutional protection. What does abandon mean in law? Book reference. Abandon. To desert, surrender, forsake. To relinquish. Never again resuming one's right or interest. People have been tricked to claim dishonorable terms as if they were honorable. Book reference. What does the tribe mean? A group of person, family, or clan believed to be descended from a common ancestor. Did you hear that? A common ancestor. Consanguinity, kinship, blood relationship, descended from the same stock, or common ancestor. Inherit means to take by inheritance. Nationality corrects your political status, and your nationality is inherited to you by descendants, by bloodline, given to you by your mother.
Above electricity and magnetism is what is called orgone energy. Those are bad words. You don't want to say orgone out here to this government and research scientists, because orgone means original. It's organic. It's orgasm. It's organic. It's organic people. And of course, they refer to those kind of people as original people. And what the last thing they want you to understand is who the original people are, and why the original people are, and where the original people are, and when the original people came. None of that will they teach you. But you do hear a word that's used a lot. It's called aboriginal. Never use that word aboriginal if you are indigenous to the planet. Why? Because it means to abhor the original person. Aboriginal means to abhor the original. To abhor means to hate, to envy, to covet, to dislike. Consequently, the word aboriginal means that you have a dislike for the original person. And the original person, of course, is a person with melanin. That's been proven so many times now that if necessary, I won't spend the time with an audience like you to go into that, but nevertheless.
The oldest civilization, which they have marked in the Western Hemisphere to be the Olmec, or the Meckian, which you get Mexum from. That was talking about the Olmecs. The Olmecs were the oldest civilization here, and they ran this empire until just recently under various names. The Songhai Malian Empire, the Washito Empire, the Kushite Empire, the Ottoman Empire. All of these were just various names of the same empire, same people, the Moors. Now, the Olmecs being the oldest, they came from out of the interior of the Yucatan Peninsula. They came up into North America, spreading out along the Mississippi River. As a matter of fact, Prophet Noble Ali states in the oral statements and tradition that it was Moors before the Europeans. Before the Europeans came, there was Moors living all up and down the Mississippi.
To Spain, that's another thing. When they say that the Moors from North Africa went into Spain, right? Mm-hmm. We today think North Africa is just the northern portion of Africa. But I just told you, under the Piri Reis map, the map of the empire, anything west of Mali was northern and western Africa. Northwest Africa. So that means over here. So when they talk about the Moors from North Africa, they talk about those of us from over here and those of us, them from over there in what they call the Barbary States, which was Morocco, Tunis, Algiers, and Tripoli. We shut down the Roman Empire altogether. It was us on the northwestern, southwestern shores, and then in the far east, that was the Caliphate, and in the far east, you had what was called the Khanate, which was Timor, what they called Tamerlane, Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, Attila the Hun, the rest of them. So we shut them down.
During the Civil War, the Moors went to war against each other. Now, we destroyed ourselves in this. The Europeans did not come here and bring us down. We did that from inside, and they capitalized on the carnage. Do you understand? All of these buildings all around here, as I told in class last night, they're ours. They belong to us. They're ancient, these buildings. There's a whole city underneath this city. They've went and burned all the major cities, the major energy centers on this globe we call an earth. Our ancestors set up these energy centers that we call Philadelphia, New York, Boston, Atlanta, Detroit, right? Chicago, Miami, Phoenix, Los Angeles. They are energy centers. They're not where they are in huge, large cities just because of some coincidence. There's energy and power in these places.
The receipt. The originals of the earth. The United Nations recognizes native Moors as being the oldest indigenous civilization on earth. 1995. The Empire Wichita dug the Munya. So this is us. Debate over with. You need some more? No problemo. You see her right there. The late Dr. Empress Vertice Tiara Wichita Turner Golston L. Bay is the great-great-granddaughter of Marie Antoinette, 6 times removed, and the rightful heir to the throne of France, Spain, and England by the royal bloodline. Puckachek, she laid claim to the following land: the Bourbon Estate, also known as the Imperial International Estate of the Bourbon-Habsburg Empire, which includes Western Europe, the Imperial International Estate of the Bourbon-Habsburg Empire, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Germany, Italy, Sicily, Naples, Sardinia, Spain, Portugal, as well as most of North America and the Caribbean, in addition to Central and South America, and all North America west of the Imperial Demarcation Line, 1713. Or British Royal Proclamation Line, 1763. What are you talking about? You ain't Moors.
Gotcha.
Don't forget.
Right. But that's what makes information so powerful is, you don't care how people feel about the ritual. It's about just following the ritual work. You can fool yourself into thinking there isn't one, but the evidence will be clear. So like when I be like, oh, these guys are wearing dresses. Everybody's like, oh, he keeps talking about people wearing dresses. No, it's not.
That is a weird thing.
It's not like that. Look at it from a different way. Look at it. Show me one person that ever wore a dress in Hollywood unsuccessfully. That's how you understand what a ritual is. The experience that you were getting from church was the fact that it was being read to you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It not what we have currently, where you have the book and they have the book, but this person is literally reciting the word of God to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And he becomes the holder of all that information and the only one.
All holders of all information
are that. Yep. It's like a human pattern that people follow, even if they just run an internet company. Even if they run a social media company, they follow that same pattern.
He knows the history. He knows that churches used to be the only place where they kept and taught information. There wasn't schools, there wasn't libraries, it was the archive, it was the school, it was the library. That's what churches were. Temples, that's what they were. People would rely on the preachers or the holy ones to give them all information, including agriculture. And it's mind-blowing that my interview with someone named Anna von Reitz, she taught me that the Vatican is actually in charge of the air jurisdiction. Land, air, and water. There's 3 jurisdictions, and the Vatican's in charge of one of the most important ones, and they're actually in charge of everything that's in the air, which includes ideas, which are actually patents. The Vatican, one of the oldest library temple churches, actually owns most of the patents to all the free energy. It goes deep.
People somehow get the idea that I was working for the Vatican, which is an entirely different organization. Has nothing to do with the office of the Pope per se. People are ignorant about the church. They don't realize that there's a sacred side and a secular side. They don't realize that the secular side of the church controls the jurisdiction of the air. And all of the corporations and copyrights and patents and things like that are controlled by the church.
The Pope or Vatican controls the patents?
The Pope owns them. The Vatican does all of the management. So, the Pope is the one who has the power to liquidate any corporation on earth. But the Vatican is like the property manager. Okay?
Thing a rational person can take from Hitler's story is being able to see what if you had unlimited resource and ability to just follow global rabbit hole. You find out that most stuff that is labeled BS is not BS. BS is very hard to come by.
Well, the Hitler thing is real weird because the Nazis are really into the occult.
At some point in the information process, that was required.
It was required to be into the occult.
So in the world of medicine, certain things, before they had a label of being toxic, you just knew don't touch it. You know what I mean? You didn't know what it was good for, but those occultists were the keepers of things that did work, not things that did not work.
Right.
So, throughout history, that whole process of thinking, anything that could fall into the alchemy conversation was seen as occult-based, doing something unnatural. So even the blacksmith was considered a part of that world through most of history.
Really?
Because he had an unnatural relationship with elements. He was able to take this and turn it into things.
Oh, that makes sense. At the heart of alchemy.
All processes that are discussed at these pyramids and because they're all processes.
Yeah. I've always wondered if alchemy is trying to regain lost knowledge. If at one point in time they did know how to just make metals. They did know how to create elements. They did know how to change lead into gold or whatever the fuck they wanted to do.
That's what this whole line consisted of.
Yeah.
But it required money and time, and all royalty, all kings, all great leaders of the world, this is what you paid for, was people that could make things happen.
He even believes that not thinking about your birthday or your age will make you live longer, and he fantasizes about being rich and exploring the world, similar to Hitler, but at the same time, he sees a lot of truth in the Jewish culture, in their rituals, and their practices. He says when you look at the facts and not the actual religious stigma surrounding. So Katt obviously is very self-serving, very intelligent. He's chosen the path of Satan, basically, and that is of materialistic items, self-worth, happiness in this life.
The most important information in this battle, the difference between Satan and Lucifer, according to the occult beliefs or the beliefs of all the Freemasons and all of the elites, basically everyone in power. They believe one side is Satan, the other side is Lucifer. One side is Satan, and that is the devil that you can worship and that you can sacrifice to and get material items.
That term Set became Ha-Satan, and so Set became Satan. Now Ha-Satan is a Hebrew term meaning the adversary, and so it means that this is a being that has an adversarial relationship to the human being. And so that's where we then got the concept in the West of Satan. Again, this is a dark type of being, very different from the Luciferic beings as beings of light, becoming completely materialistic. so that we don't even believe that spirit exists. Spirit is some type of illusion that we have. There's nothing but random evolution over time through completely physical biological processes, and there is no spirit, there's nothing of that kind. So this becomes a kind of modern materialistic scientific perspective that's very sharp in some ways, but has absolutely no spiritual perception.
And on the other side is Lucifer, god of light, knowledge, and where you go for all your information.
For the left-hand pillar, you have spiritual beings that don't understand or really care for the physical world. They're not into that. The physical world is something that seems like a place of suffering. And many of the ancient traditions of the world were heavily influenced by these beings, with teachings of the physical world being an illusion, of the physical world being a place of suffering, get off the cycle of karma and reincarnation, etc. In the Western world, it was understood that these spiritual beings are advanced spiritual beings, more advanced than human beings. And they also have tremendous spiritual light. When one encounters them, one does not encounter a being of darkness. One encounters a being of tremendous light. And so the name given to the leader of this particular spiritual group was Lucifer, and these are Luciferic beings. The basic idea here is that to one side, you can go, even with any human being, toward a type of spiritual development where you really focus on spirit, but your physical life goes straight to hell. You know, you're not able to pay the bills, and your relationships with people suffer, and you're not taking care of business, and your life's not going that well, but you're really focused on spirit all the time, but not grounded. Now that can also lead, unfortunately, to forms of spirituality that are illusory or hallucinogenic, so that the things that are being perceived and worked with are not really real, or they're distorted through our lens in a particular way that's really not helpful. And so this is connected to what classically is referred to as the Luciferic extreme.
They believe that in the middle is technically where the good people go, the people that are trying to make a difference in the world. The people who are chaos, in which most of them embrace, and the Freemasonry probably promotes. When you choose the left, the Luciferic extreme, when you choose that, that's when you choose to do all of the bad things, okay? Everybody that is trying to be a good person, you're trying to maintain balance. They believe that based on where you resonate, on the left or on the right, with Lucifer or Satan, you're influenced by different types of beings.
If we were to strip away the veil, we would see that these invisible Luciferic and Ahrimanic beings are influencing our consciousness at all times to go to one direction or the other, just as the beneficial beings are also connecting with us. And in the ancient temple science, it was understood that our connection to these beings was purely through resonance. When we think in a particular manner, when we feel in a particular manner, all of our thoughts, all of our feelings, all of our internal states have an energetic quality to them, and they will resonate like an antenna with qualities of the exact same type.
According to the Rosicrucians, who believe staying in middle and maintaining the balance and not going to the Luciferic extreme, according to them, there are entities in the middle that will help you like angels, and entities like demons on the left or the right where the extremes are. And the extremes are always pulling at you. So this phenomenon and what they believe, they all believe, it may explain to you why there's always two extremes in everything and why the truth lays in the middle. Why there's a Donald Trump versus a Biden. Okay, hopefully that explains all this to you. This is what they believe. They believe one side is female, one side is male. They believe one side is of the moon, one side is the sun. It all correlates together, and the middle makes the Trinity. If you enjoy this topic, I have 11 years of this material that was given to me by a member that you can read and see what they truly believe for yourself. Go to this Telegram channel below. And on the contrast, I choose the path of being in service to everybody. I know I can't save the world, but that's what I'm going to try to do until I die. And I know it's never going to be able to be accomplished, but in order to accomplish it for me, all I need done is to do my best. And that's okay. And clearly, he's infiltrated by the demons, the archons, and he doesn't even know it.
Another major pattern that human beings fall into time and time again.
Well, you know, the Jewish people are powerful people on this planet, and a lot of that has to do with the process that they have in instilling in their young people a certain amount of information and wherewithal and conversation that does not happen with other cultures. They exist only in a few places around the world. They're always important, especially if you look at things from a non-religious point of view.
Again, it goes back to information.
at all points.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long I'm going to live, because I'm kind of conflicted about how long people live. 100's a good number, but there's been people that 600 seems, I don't know, seems like this. But I'm just going to space it out 7 years at a time. So every 7 years, that's going to be a life, so I don't waste anything. So I couldn't wait till I got 7, because that was going to be the start of my first life.
Why'd you break it into 7s? Just randomly?
I don't know what randomly means.
You had a company called Lucifer Publishing to write out the philosophical underpinnings of the United Nations. She turned it into something called Lucis Trust, which still to this day exists at the United Nations as a meditation room with a big black cube in the middle and 1,000 points of light coming through the roof. And she wrote the 10 rules for the one world government, which still exists at the United Nations today. And they are, okay, take God and prayer out of education. Number 2, reduce parental authority over children. Number 3, destroy the traditional Christian family structure. Number 4, if sex is free, make abortion easy and legal. 5, make divorce easy and legal, free people of the concept of traditional marriage. 6, make homosexuality the alternative lifestyle. 7, debase art, make it run mad. 8, use media to promote and change mindset. 9, create an interfaith movement without God. And 10, get governments to make all these laws and get the churches to endorse them.
Obama repealed the 1948 Smith-Mundt Act, which then permitted propaganda to be in broadcasting. It no longer said that it had to be credible.
Let's just say the one thing not welcome at the United Nations is God.
And we don't know if we're going to make it through the circumstances we're being faced with. But if it doesn't fit, it ain't shit. And things in this world are starting to not fit. Right now, we have a perfectly suitable clown running the free world. We got a guy whose advice included things that no decent crackhead would tell you to do with a gunshot wound. The man said if you have bleach, rub it on yourself. Sprinkle something in your eye. If you see any UV lighting, walk in front of it. But these are serious times. The president's a clown. Who gonna say something that makes sense? As for me and my household, I will. If you need me to say something dumb real slow so you can get it, I'll do that. Watch how it goes. Gravity is real. Huh, wasn't that simple? You notice how people didn't start hollering? Let's stick on facts. Black Lives Matter, period. You can say it, you at home, say it. Wherever you are, no matter who's around, just say it. Say it because it's a fact. I want to apologize if some people have seen civil unrest and didn't understand that civil unrest is what happens every time a place is ruled by the people and the people's needs are not being met. Might not be the happy truth you want, but we deserve the truth. Even one of the greatest cities in the world, New York, even they have deep, dark secrets. Some of y'all thought you only had 2 choices, just like this election. You thought your choices was heaven or hell. No, you got another choice. Purgatory, limbo. Where you go and ain't nobody claim you. You just died and everybody said, you know what would save a funeral? And while that might be unpleasant for some, it's the truth. This is not close to the first pandemic, and here we are again. It's an airborne virus, folks. If you breathe air, put on a mask. And because we can all agree that breathing is important, we can all agree that you putting your knee on a man's neck for 8 minutes, it's just murder. Just televised murder. So now there must be a reaction for that. I'm not going to hide in a bunker. Time to get a bunker.
Seems like it might be a good time to get a bunker.
I'm on the front line with you. We are going to get rid of racism this time, once and for all, no matter what has to happen, folks. It only must be identified and then worked on. It's time to make changes, folks. You can make them there at your own home. Thank you all. Have a good day. Be kind to your neighbors. If you see a sign that says Black Lives Matter, say out loud, white friends. Sure do. Watch how quickly things start to change in the country. Anyway, it's been a pleasure to be here. If you got some information out of it, I appreciate that. I have already done more than an elected official.
I thank you, and good night.